Well, hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Holy Donuts podcast. I'm your host, Matt Lombardi. This episode is sponsored by our friends at WeGive. If you are looking for the best donor experience on the planet, you got to check out WeGive.com. Tell them that we sent you from the Holy Donuts podcast. We'd be grateful that you did. But today, I am joined, really excited by this, by Lauren Wright. Lauren is a generosity strategist with Generis, previously the communications director at Water for Good. And so, Lauren, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so to start, why don't you give our audience a little bit of an overview on your background and tell us a little bit more about how you got into this world of generosity strategy, but also nonprofit communication.
Yeah. So I have kind of always been involved in journalism and mass communication and studied that in college, but also wrestled with this calling from God into ministry and what do those two things look like together. And at the time, I didn't really know what that looked like. But come to find out, there's a whole field of faith-based marketers and communicators that you can make a career in. And so I ended up in a church for almost a decade, serving in the executive leadership in a communications marketing type role, as well as doing some stewardship, and then moved into a faith-based nonprofit and have been there about 5 years and now making kind of a transition into consulting. So a little bit of everything. Yes.
Yeah, I've seen it from all angles, right? So the church side, the nonprofit side, now kind of outside the consulting side of it, getting a full picture of the entire industry, which is always helpful. So because you see the whole picture, when you kind of look out and you're looking at your experience, whether that's with the nonprofit, with church, is there a campaign, a strategy, a tool, an idea, something that has stood out to you in your career that you think is really beneficial that a lot of nonprofits should really be considering?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I have reflected on recently and just been really, really sure that it was important or a monumental part of our fundraising was our storytelling aspect. At Water for Good, all of our work is done overseas. And so it's few to no donors that actually get to see, smell, taste, experience the life of Central Africans. And so you have a huge challenge, literally an ocean divide, to translate this into ways that donors can really experience and understand. And I think storytelling is just like, it's the heart of what Jesus did. He went around and he's telling stories and people are engaging with his mission. And that's what organizations do. And so making it so that we could tell those stories in an impactful way where people want to connect with the mission and vision of Water for Good. And so we had to really figure it out. It's a very complex environment. But we started telling stories from one child's perspective, from one person, and our donors started to know those individuals like baby Sandra, and people knew baby Sandra because we talked about baby Sandra and what her life would look like without clean water. And we were able to come back a year later and do a campaign for her first birthday to raise money for others in her community. And so it's just making that storytelling and that donation become very relational so that you're connecting with someone, something, and knowing that your donation, your money, your tithes, offerings, whatever it is really going to make an impact, a kingdom impact.
Yeah. So I'm hearing a little bit of like a framework, right, that you all have, which is, hey, we actually want the story, which is such a like unique angle, right? Like you hear a lot about, oh, we'll tell the stories of the people who we're serving, but you don't actually hear this like, oh, we're going to tell it through the lens of one individual's experience with our ministry. How did you all come to that as a kind of core concept or framework for how you told stories?
I think it really started to originate when I traveled and I got to know these people, and I sat with baby Sandra's mom. I sat in the little hut with Pastor Walker and heard their stories. And I thought, if I'm so moved sitting here, I think other people will be too. And we took those stories back and created videos. We created entire campaigns. And although it might seem like, hey, we'll get some campaign fatigue just hearing one person's story over and over, we recycled that content and used it in a lot of different formats: social, email marketing, print, video, and then, throughout. It might be in grants, it might be, in follow-up letters, thank you notes, whatever it is. They continue to hear about those names, and those names are like now the face of Water for Good. These people that when they think Water for Good, they're not thinking um, nothing. You don't have a picture, but now you have a picture. Like, I know what baby Sandra looks like. I know what Pastor Walker looks like. And so I think it was a little bit of like we stumbled upon it, and then it was a little bit of like, here's what moves us as people connected to the organization. And we started to really see that impact in connecting not just with individuals, but churches and organizations. Just really, hey, we love that Pastor Walker video and we want to hear more about Pastor Walker. So
That's so cool. I love that. Well, hey there, Holy Donuts listeners. Ever feel like your nonprofit's donor experience is like a jelly-filled donut with no jelly? Well, don't fret. We found the jelly to your donut dilemma. Enter WeGive, the software tool that's like the cream filling to your eclair, or should I say the glaze to your donut. With WeGive, you're not just taking a donation, you're rolling out a red carpet for every person who gives to your organization. And with WeGive, you get an incredible donor portal, events, pledges, surveys, segmentation, on and on we could go on the features. And those checkouts, though, smoother than my attempt to make homemade donuts, which, let's just say, didn't quite rise to the occasion. See what I did there? With WeGive's innovative engagement tools, your donors won't just feel the love, they'll be coming back for second. Because nothing says thanks for your dough better than a world-class experience. So if you want to sprinkle some extra special magic on your donor relationships, check out WeGive.com. So when you look out now in your new role as a strategist, right, you're working with a lot of organizations, what's a trend that you kind of see in Christian nonprofits that's got you really excited? And what's one that's got you a little bit concerned?
yeah. Well, we can start with the bad news, but I mean, I think the big thing that's our whole society is so instantaneous and everything's just now, now, now. And the minute we start boiling or watering down our fundraising efforts, when we start trying to replace things that are relational with very transactional things, I think we lose a lot of value. Donors can go anywhere and have a transaction. You can drive through the drive-through, you can get online. You don't even have to, you can just pick up your phone. But to have that relationship is actually really hard now. And so you have to work and you have to pick up the phone. You may have to, do some visits. You may have to really connect with people. And so I think just really taking the time to build those relationships with your donors, with your people that you're marketing to. It can be, it could be even like focus groups or different, just hearing from other people. But I think our donors, always will really appreciate anytime we take time for them, because while it might be easy in our chair to just see people as dollar signs, they're not. They're, entire beings, and we don't want to minimize that that effort. And those people are the reasons our organizations exist. And so just not taking that lightly. I think just not thinking, hey, we can throw up a social media ad, we can run this campaign and get 100 new donors, and that's great, because we now need to nurture, we need to have a follow-up plan for those donors. We need to be ready to prepare them and to cultivate them and to properly thank and appreciate too. I just think that there's like a whole plan that goes in place when you want to put something. And I think I see a lot of organizations just jumping to, we'll throw a lot of money at social media or Google ad buying or these things that are awesome tools when used with a properly built out framework. But when you just throw it at them, and yeah, you might get some $5 donations or some new email names in your database, but to be ready to really receive, cultivate, and expand them into potential bigger donors or champions of your cause.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time with with nonprofits, is like, if you treat people like a number, they will eventually return the favor, right? Like, if there's sign, then eventually when their budget gets tight or when they have to make a decision because they're saying, oh, well, I'm supporting like, 10 different ministries right now, you're going to just become a dollar sign to them because you treated them like a dollar sign. And they're going to say, well, okay, well, you're the one to go because like it's just another, $50 a month I'm spending. I don't need to spend that. Right. So it is about building those relationships and letting donors know that like they matter to the mission, they matter to the vision, and reminding them that, hey, it's not just a transactional thing. So I love
Yeah.
that. On the more positive side, what are you seeing that has you a little bit more hopeful for nonprofits?
I absolutely think social media on the flip side is an incredible tool. I just think it more than ever, especially small nonprofits, can spread their reach really easily. I mean, there's just so much excitement. There's so much room. I love like seeing some of the viral challenges actually go viral because I think those things pre social media, it was a lot harder to get your name out there. It was a lot of word of mouth or different marketing efforts that were hard to like now we're globalized. We're not just localized to our small community that our nonprofit was founded in. And so I think, it has its own challenges, but it also has so much opportunity when properly leveraged. And there's so many great tools out there that you can use to track and, make sure that you are being a great steward with those resources.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Social media it's as much as it's a buzzword, it still somehow is like underused by ministries. Like I
Absolutely.
think everyone thinks like, oh, we put stuff out, but it's like the actual strategy of really dedicating someone who understands the platform deeply, who understands how to leverage it and how to interact and how to engage with people. That's I don't know about you, but like one of my things like it's one thing to throw out a post, but like the real magic of social media happens in the comments. Like
Yeah.
that's where like you're actually going to interact with people. That's where it gets social. Like, it's not social if you're just throwing out a post and someone passively is hitting a like button, or you're like, oh, we got 5,000 impressions on that, but it didn't actually lead to any conversations. That's not social. That's just a monologue from your organization. So, yeah, somehow,
Absolutely.
as much as it's a big deal, it's still underutilized in its proper formats.
Yeah. And I think when you see it as like, because I think the beauty of social media is it's a come and see, right? And anytime you can get people to be hands on with your ministry, mission, church, people are automatically, they have a deeper connection. And so it's this come and see model. And when you can use that properly, it's like a mini mission trip or vision trip. You make a post and now people are commenting. That's exactly what would have happened if you had taken a trip over to the Central African Republic or downtown to the women's shelter or whatever it is. People are interacting, people are talking, you're seeing, you're touching, you're feeling. And so, as much as you can recreate that in storytelling on social media, I think, yeah, absolutely. That's why those comments are so essential.
Yeah. And so, what resources do you like to give out to friends, people in the industry, colleagues? Like, are there books? Are there magazines? Are there articles? What are some of the resources that you like to share most often?
I think my current favorite is the Nonprofit Storytelling Conference. I attended last year. It's great. They have some various, tracks that you can go through depending on if you want to concentrate more on social media or just different facets. But I think storytelling and marketing is such a unique thing for nonprofits. You can definitely learn a ton from the for-profit industry, but then there's some unique quirks that we all have to live with within the church and nonprofit sector. And so it was a really refreshing time to go be in a convention center with a lot of other people who sit in your chair in different organizations. And I'm a huge fan of networking. I just think I learned so much from other organizations. And so I right now that's my go-to. I really enjoyed attending and being a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a missed opportunity when it's like, listen, books, podcasts are all great. You can learn a ton. But when you get to have lunch with someone who's in the same chair as you, maybe an organization a little bit bigger, maybe the same size, maybe smaller, but they've done something that you've not done before, and be able to just sit there for 30 minutes and be like, okay, but yeah, you guys did that way, but like, okay, how'd you get your data clean to like get this campaign to actually set that right? Or like, how'd you, okay, like, yeah, we're in this CRM, but like we've been trying to get our emails to sync up right with it. Like, how'd you guys do that? Like, just those really tactical, what sometimes seem like to us in our spot, like dumb questions, like having someone that you can trust that you can just say, hey, what'd you guys do? And then what you find out usually is like, oh, well, we're having a problem with that too. It's just a complete pain, right? And you're like, oh, okay. Like, now I feel better. And there's no amount of like podcast or article or book can really help with those sort of conversations. There's so much of our day-to-day work when we're working in nonprofit. So I love it.
Yeah.
I love events. They're cool.
We all need to feel a little bit like normal, or like, like, hey, we're doing the best we can with the resources we got. And sometimes that's really limited in nonprofit or church work. So
that's for sure. That's for sure. So, okay, Lauren, if folks want to connect with you, if they want to figure out a way to, whether that's figure out what you're doing with this consulting strategy for generosity, like they say, hey, that sounds actually like something we could use. Or if they just want to connect with you and say, hey, ask a question, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Absolutely. Like I said, I love networking. So happy to talk, whether it's just to make more connections or, if you need some help along the way. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can look up Lauren Wright, or you can also email me, lauren.wright@generis.com. So either way.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thanks for being so generous with your knowledge. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.